What is the true meaning of life? Does it already exist, waiting to be discovered, or is it something we must create for ourselves? This is one of the oldest questions in human history. From the first philosophers of ancient Greece to modern thinkers, humanity has searched for answers, wondering whether our existence has a greater purpose, or if everything is simply a matter of chance. Some people find meaning in religion, others in science, art, or relationships. Some seek purpose in work, pleasure, or simply in accepting that life doesn't need a single, ultimate meaning. But what if we've been looking at this question the wrong way? What if the true meaning of life isn't what we imagine it to be? This question was explored in radically different ways by two of the most influential modern thinkers, Friedrich Nietzsche and Viktor Frankl. Two men separated by time and life experiences, who arrived at completely opposite conclusions about what gives meaning to our existence. Nietzsche was one of the most revolutionary philosophers in history. He challenged all the absolute truths that humanity had accepted for centuries. To him, there is no universal meaning to life, no purpose, given by God, nature, or society. Instead, it is up to us to create our own meaning through self-overcoming and the affirmation of our will. Viktor Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist and survivor of the Holocaust, experienced extreme suffering in Nazi concentration camps. Amid brutality and despair, he noticed that those who could find a purpose to keep going had a greater chance of survival. To him, the meaning of life is not invented, but discovered, and often emerges in moments of deep suffering. So, which of these perspectives makes more sense to you? Should we create our own meaning, as Nietzsche believed, or discover it, as Frankl proposed? This is not just a philosophical debate. It directly impacts how we live, make decisions, and face challenges. In the next few minutes, we'll dive into this battle of ideas. We'll explore the perspectives of Nietzsche and Frankl, understand their differences, and reflect on how we can find or create a purpose that truly makes sense in our lives. If you've ever felt lost or questioned whether life has a purpose, this video might change the way you see your own existence. Friedrich Nietzsche was one of the most revolutionary philosophers of modern times. Born in 1844 in Prussia, he dedicated his life to deeply questioning everything that was considered absolute truth. His philosophy didn't just challenge religion and traditional morality. It proposed an entirely new way of looking at existence. Humans should not seek a meaning of life imposed by something external, but rather create it from within themselves. The eternal return. Would you live your life over and over again? Imagine that, at the end of your life, someone told you that you would have to relive every moment, every mistake, every choice, over and over again, forever, without changing a thing. Would you accept this fate, or would the thought of it terrify you? This is the provocation behind the concept of eternal return, one of Nietzsche's most thought-provoking ideas. Nietzsche wasn't saying that life literally repeats itself forever. Instead, he was asking, are you living in a way that you would be willing to relive every moment eternally without regret? If the idea of reliving your life exactly as it is fills you with anxiety, perhaps you are not living authentically. For Nietzsche, this reflection forces us to take full responsibility for our existence. If life has no predetermined meaning, then it is up to each of us to create a purpose that makes life worth living. The death of God and the end of absolute truths. Nietzsche is famous for the phrase, "God is dead." But this idea goes far beyond religion. He wasn't just saying that faith in God had disappeared. He was declaring the collapse of all absolute truths that had defined human existence for centuries. For most of history, people believed life had a defined purpose, serving God, following moral laws, fulfilling a destiny. But Nietzsche saw this as a comfortable illusion. He argued that traditional values weren't eternal truths, but human inventions. designed to control and limit our true creative power. Now that God is dead, humanity faces a terrifying challenge. If there is no higher purpose, what is left? For Nietzsche, this shouldn't lead to despair. It should be seen as an opportunity to create something new, the will to power, the driving force of life. If no external force gives us purpose, what drives us forward? For Nietzsche, the answer is the will to power. But this doesn't mean power over others. It means affirming yourself, growing beyond your limitations, transforming yourself and the world around you. Whenever we create, overcome challenges, seek knowledge, or express our individuality, we are exercising our will to power. Nietzsche saw this force in great artists, thinkers, leaders, and innovators, people who refused to simply follow the path laid out for them and instead created new values and new ways of living. The Übermensch, becoming the creator of meaning. Nietzsche's ultimate vision was the Übermensch, often translated as the Superman or Overman. But what does this mean? The Übermensch is someone who refuses to be bound by inherited values, who does not accept a purpose imposed by others, but instead creates their own path, their own values, and their own meaning in life. While most people live as the last men, content to follow what they've been taught, seeking comfort and security, the Übermensch breaks free from this passivity and takes control of their own existence with courage and creativity. Create, don't discover. For Nietzsche, life has no pre-written purpose waiting to be found. Here is no universal guide to the meaning of life. There is no predetermined destiny for each of us. Meaning must be created, and that requires strength, courage, and a willingness to challenge what we've been taught, reject imposed truths, and build a meaning that is truly our own. The existential dilemma. What if some people can't create their own meaning? But is this absolute freedom a heavy burden? What if some people simply can't create meaning for themselves? This is where Viktor Frankl comes in. After experiencing unimaginable suffering in a concentration camp, he didn't see purpose as something we create, but as something we discover, often in our deepest struggles. So, who was right? Should we invent our own meaning, or is there a deeper purpose waiting to be found? While Friedrich Nietzsche argued that the meaning of life must be created, Viktor Frankl took a different path. For Frankl, meaning already exists. We don't invent it, we discover it, often in the most difficult moments of life. But he didn't come to this conclusion through philosophical speculation. He arrived at it through direct experience with extreme suffering. During World War II, Frankl was imprisoned in 4 Nazi concentration camps, including Auschwitz. He lost his pregnant wife, his parents, and his brother. He witnessed firsthand what happens when human beings are pushed to the absolute limits of pain and despair. Faced with this brutal reality, one urgent question arose: what makes a person keep going when everything seems lost? Logotherapy, finding meaning in life. Frankl noticed something essential. Those who had a clear purpose, whether it was reuniting with a loved one, finishing an unfinished work, or simply resisting until the last moment, had a better chance of surviving. This discovery led him to develop logotherapy, a psychological approach based on the idea that the primary motivation of human beings is not the pursuit of pleasure, as Freud believed, or power, as Nietzsche argued, but the search for meaning in life. Logotherapy proposes that we cannot avoid suffering, but we can give it meaning. While many psychological theories try to minimize pain, Frankl believed that suffering could be transformed into growth and purpose if we can see meaning behind it, the power of purpose in suffering. In the concentration camps, Frankl observed prisoners who, even on the verge of death, found reasons to keep going. He recounted incredible stories. A man who endured the horrors of the camps because he dreamed of seeing his daughter again. A scientist who clung to the idea of finishing his research once he was freed. a prisoner who endured daily suffering because he wanted to share with the world what he had learned. These people were not necessarily the strongest physically. Instead, they were the ones who had a reason to live. This led Frankl to an important realization. What keeps people going is not the absence of pain, but the presence of a purpose. Suffering as a path to meaning. Frankl proposed a powerful concept. Suffering can be transformed into meaning. This does not mean that pain is good, but that when suffering is inevitable, we can use it to grow, learn, and find a deeper purpose. He wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Interestingly, this phrase was inspired by Nietzsche, but Frankl applied it differently. For Frankl, the meaning of life is not something subjective that we invent. It is something that awaits us, ready to be discovered. It is not just a personal creation. It is something real, waiting for us to recognize it. Meaning must be found, not created. If Nietzsche argued that every individual must create their own meaning, then Frankl responded that meaning is already there. Our mission is to find it, especially in suffering. For Frankl, true freedom is not about choosing any meaning we want, but about recognizing and accepting the purpose that calls to us. Are these ideas really opposites? At first glance, Nietzsche and Frankl seem to have completely opposite perspectives. One says, create meaning. The other says, find meaning. But maybe there is a point where these ideas intersect. Nietzsche's will to power encourages us to shape our own existence. Frankl's Logotherapy teaches that meaning can be revealed in suffering. Perhaps the real question is, do we actively shape our purpose, or does purpose find us? Now that we've explored the perspectives of Friedrich Nietzsche and Viktor Frankl, one big question remains. Is the meaning of life something we must create, or something we must discover? On one side, Nietzsche challenges us to abandon the idea of an external or universal meaning. To him, there is no pre-existing purpose waiting for us. We must define our own reason to live. On the other side, Frankl argues that meaning already exists, and our mission is to find it, especially in our moments of greatest suffering. Two radically different perspectives, but equally powerful. Create or discover? The big dilemma. If we follow Nietzsche, there is no predetermined destiny, no meaning imposed by society, religion, or the universe. We are entirely responsible for giving meaning to our own existence. This offers immense freedom, but also a burden. What if we fail to create a purpose for ourselves? Frankl, however, offers a different path. For him, we don't have to invent meaning from scratch, because it is already there, waiting for us to find it. Even when we feel lost, even when life seems directionless, there is always something worth living for, a purpose greater than ourselves. And here lies the central conflict between these two philosophies. Is life truly filled with meaning, waiting for us to find it, or is it entirely up to us to give it meaning? Suffering. What can it teach us? Another key difference between Nietzsche and Frankl is how they interpret suffering. For Nietzsche, pain is part of the journey of those who seek strength. Suffering has no inherent meaning, but it can be a path to growth, transformation, and self-overcoming. The goal is not to avoid suffering, but to use it as fuel to create a powerful sense of meaning. For Frankl, suffering can be the key to finding meaning. He believed that even in the most extreme pain, we can transform suffering into something greater, but only if we have a reason to endure it. He saw that those who found purpose in their suffering had a better chance of survival and of continuing forward. While Nietzsche saw suffering as a test to be conquered, Frankl viewed suffering as a path to discovering purpose. Which of these perspectives resonates with you? So, what's the answer? Maybe the answer depends on who you are and where you are in life. Some people may identify with Nietzsche because they want to take full control of their own existence, rejecting any idea of an external purpose. For them, the power to create meaning is liberating and essential. Others may find more comfort In Frankl's vision, because they feel meaning already exists, they just need to find it. This perspective can be especially valuable in times of pain and uncertainty, when creating meaning from nothing feels impossible. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. In some moments of life, we may need to create our own meaning. At other times, we may need to open ourselves to the possibility that meaning is already waiting to be found. In the end, the meaning of life may not be what you think, or it may be exactly what you decide it is. What do you think? Do we create meaning, or do we discover it? We've reached the end of this philosophical journey, and now we return to the big question. Is the true meaning of life what we imagine it to be? Friedrich Nietzsche challenged us to let go of any idea of an external meaning. There is no universal purpose waiting for us. We must create it ourselves. According to him, only when we embrace this responsibility, break free from imposed truths, and become the authors of our own existence, can we live with true authenticity. Viktor Frankl, on the other hand, taught us that the meaning of life is already there, waiting to be discovered, especially in moments of suffering. Even in the darkest circumstances, something always calls us forward, whether it's love for someone, a mission to accomplish, or a lesson to be learned from pain. Between these two opposing views, maybe the real question isn't which one is correct, but when each one is useful in our journey. Sometimes, we need to create our purpose, taking control of our lives, rejecting what no longer serves us, and shaping our existence according to our own vision. Other times, we need to recognize a meaning that is already there, waiting to be acknowledged, especially during challenges when we feel lost or adrift. What do you think? Which perspective resonates more with you? Do you believe the meaning of life must be created, as Nietzsche suggested? Or do you believe it must be discovered, as Frankl argued? Or perhaps a mix of both? Share your thoughts in the comments. This is a conversation worth exploring. If you enjoyed this video and want more content like this, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like us to explore other philosophers and their views on life, drop your suggestions below. Maybe there's no single answer to this question, but the search for meaning is what truly makes life meaningful.